Okay, time for lesson 15. Wow, 15. It seems like we started just a couple weeks ago. Actually, we did. So up to lesson 15. Today we're going to be talking about the eighth note, what the eighth note is, what it looks like, and basically how to count it. We're going to do a couple of rhythmic examples for that. And then what we'll do probably next time is some playing examples where I'll incorporate the things we've talked about the last couple lessons, like eighth notes today and, sharps and flats, and things like that, and some of the theory stuff. So look forward to that. But anyway, this is the end of the intro, and I'll see you at the keyboard in just a second. Alright, time for a little bit more rhythmic practice with these things called eighth notes. Now, an eighth note, let me get this out here real quick. These are two eighth notes together, and this is what a single eighth note looks like. So, what an eighth note is you're cutting a quarter note in half. So you're basically cutting one beat in half. Now there's a special way to count that, and I'll get to that in a second, but let's just show you what these two look like, or what the eighth note looks like. So when it's by itself, it has the normal head and a normal stem, just like a quarter note, except it has this flag on it, as you can see. So if you see a flag on it, a single flag, you know that you have an eighth note. And when there are two eighth notes put together, they beam them across, like kind of connect their flags. And they do that to kind of, once again, it's for structure purposes and to kind of show you how beats are broken up into. And I'll show you that in a second. So let's take a look at our examples here. Alright, so for our first example, look at this one called quarter notes. We have 4/4 time signature. All of the notes are going to be C, since this is just a rhythmic exercise. So to count quarter notes, it's quite simple. And we've talked about this before. Every time you play the piano, you're just going to count to 1. And since we have 4 beats in each measure, each quarter note is going to take up one of the 4 beats. So we have a quarter note on beat 1, beat 2, beat 3, and beat 4. So there's nothing we have to do to this. It's very straightforward. You're just going to play it 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, let's take a look at where it says eighth notes. So look, we have a full measure of eighth notes, and these are the ones that are in pairs beamed across. And they're beamed across to show you that each pair is equal to one whole beat. So what we need to do is we need to split up each beat into 2, and I'll show you how to do that. We do that with this little plus symbol, and we call that AND. So what you're going to do is, instead of counting 1, 2, 3, 4, you're going to split it up into 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Once again, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. So we're breaking up each of the 4 beats into 2, and that's how we're going to do it. So again, we're going to do the quarter note 1, which is simply 1, 2, 3, 4. And then the eighth notes is going to be 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Okay, moving on, we have a little practice section here. So we have a couple measures of 4/4 here. We know that's 4 beats in a measure. The quarter note gets 1 beat. At this first example we have here, our beat 1 has 2 eighth notes, so we need to split that up into 1 and. Beats 2, 3, and 4 are fine because they each have a quarter note to each beat number. So that is not affected. So I'll show you how to count this. Go up piano, we'll just play all these on C, or you can clap, that works too. So this one is going to go 1 and 2, 3, 4. Again, 1 and 2, 3, 4. So remember, we don't need to break up beats 2, 3, and 4 just because there's a quarter note. You only need to break up a beat when you have something that's uneven, like if it ends in a half, like if it's 1 1/2, you need to do it, or if it's just half a beat, you need to do it. And I'll explain that later on when we start talking about dotted quarter notes, which are 1 1/2 beats, and we'll be doing something very similar to this. But I'll show you that later on. So example 2, we have beats 1, 2, and 3 with eighth notes. So we need to break those up into 1 and 2 and 3 and. Now, do we need to break up that last beat because it's a quarter note? Well, no, because that quarter note will take up one entire beat. So here we go. This one we're going to count 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. So once again, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. So here's our next to last example, very short measure, 4/4 again. We need to break up beat 2 because immediately I see there are some eighth notes there. So this one's going to go 1, 2, and 3, 4. So beats 1, 3, and 4 don't need to be broken up because there's just a quarter note there. The last example we have here, now which beats are we going to have to break up? So think about this for a second. Remember when you see eighth notes or a dotted quarter note later on, you're going to have to break up the beats. If you see a quarter note, you're fine in most cases. There's a couple cases where you might have to do it, and I'll show you that later on as well. But here we go. So hopefully you said beats 1 and 3 need to be broken up because there are eighth notes there. So you're going to count this one, 1 and 2, 3 and 4. So there you have it, a very basic explanation of eighth notes. We're going to do more rhythmic practice later on because it is good for you and good for me. But anyway, it's just good in practice. So I'll start making some playing examples with eighth notes. I think the next lesson I'm going to do some playing examples, except we're going to practice those sharps and flats we were talking about in previous lessons before we start working on the eighth notes. Maybe lesson 16 we'll have the eighth note practice. We'll see. But anyway, let me know if you have any comments or questions, and I'll do my best to answer them. So I'll see you for the outro. Thanks. So that wraps up lesson 15. So we talked about what the eighth note was, what it looks like, and how to play it. Next time, I'm pretty sure what we're doing is we're playing some examples on the keyboard which will incorporate the things I've talked about the last couple of lessons, like the eighth note and sharps and flats and things like that. So look forward to that. So we'll actually be back playing our examples, which is why we're here. Anyway, as always, leave me any comments or questions that you might have. I'd be happy to answer them. Don't get to everybody. I try. But anyway, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next lesson. Thank you very much.